Yeah. Heavy stuff.
Right from the get-go, man, you are intense. You know
I'm only
that.
halfway through it as well.
You are intense. You just
But yeah.
let me okay, so we've got you set up on here. I set up a pretty cool uh, way of doing it on here now. I've got a background and everything for the Minds Roundtable, and I've even got it now to where
Remind me, what did I want to talk about?
you had. Well, I mean, you were talking about it in chat. I do remember
Which
that.
one? I've been talking about lots of things.
Let me make sure I'm right here. I remember you were talking about you were wanting to bring it up in the next. It was just recently too. Now I know when Tan gets in here, he's going to want to talk about the State of the Union,
Okay.
and I can guarantee you that Cromwell, wasn't it? Yes.
Oh no, I just referenced that film because I thought you may not have seen, or you may have not seen it for a long time.
Oh, okay. So
I imagine you would have already seen it.
let me scroll. Let me
Seeing
scroll
as
up
it
a
was produced
little
in
bit.
1970.
Let me scroll up a little bit. There might have been. It might have been something beforehand because I know you said that we should talk about this in the show, so I can find it.
Okay.
Get it straightened out.
So that was because the Cromwell they must last week.
Yeah. Well, it was a little
Was this
bit
Saturday?
after. It was a little bit out. Yeah, it was a little bit after we did the show. And you said it might be of interest to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm guessing you've already seen it before.
Yeah, it's been a while. I seen that episode, or
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that took me back. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, like I said, the last time I saw it was when I was in my early teens, so when I was 13, 14 or something.
Now, Tan started talking about crazy shit. He started talking about zombies and stuff, and I think that would be something cool to talk about because it depends on where he's going with the term zombie. You know what I mean with his post.
You've infected them.
Yes.
He's going to talk about brain eating zombies.
Well, I think something clicked whenever we had our last show, and I told him about knowing the name of God because that really woke him up, you know, especially when it comes to possessions and stuff. And then when you start talking about the Jews and why they never actually wanted to give God a name, there was a reason behind that. So I think something clicked. Now, if he wants to go that route, I'll start talking about the Egyptians and the Ba and the Ka, and then you have the I forgot the damn name of the tribe that's in Africa, the one out by Timbuktu. But they also believe in a lower spirit or a little soul and a big soul.
Okay.
And that comes from the Ba and the Ka beliefs in Egypt, but it's changed by the time it goes farther south in Africa. And by the time it reached here to the United States, it was called voodoo and hoodoo. But it's the same concept, which that's actually a cool thing to talk about. I think so. I'm a weirdo.
Oh yeah, I just learned that there are real zombies. Claire virus, narcissus.
Okay, I have not found
Keep it when you go with the friends and the young blah blah.
I have
Yeah, it was the same time. Okay. Sorry.
Oh, it's not you. Another thing that I think Dan it'd be cool to talk about is Boaz. We were talking about Ruth last week.
Okay.
And Boaz is the guy she ended her second husband. And when she married him, she became a part of the lineage of David, which was supposed to be the lineage for Jesus. The weird part about Boaz too is he's one of the pillars on the first temple was named after Boaz. So that was kind of cool. Okay, so yeah, I can't find anything about it. I was almost positive. Oh yeah, Tan wanted to interview B at some point too. That was one of
His second interview.
This would be if he interviews him. This would be his third interview with us on it. Well, it would actually be the first one for Mine's Roundtable, I believe. I've had him interviewed on 2 other shows.
We're turning V into a celebrity.
Well, he already thinks he's a celebrity.
Yeah, he's going to get the red carpet treatment.
Yeah. Like every day is the red carpet treatment when it comes to V. Like in V's mind, he's just everything. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, we interviewed him on The Wonderful World of Weirdness, and we also did it on Untethered. Mr. Robot interviewed him on that one. So. Okay, so
these things.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't. It wasn't on there. But he did want to talk about the U.S. president's recent State of the Union thing. So
I just realised Nancy's nervous system manipulation by electromagnetic fields from monitors. She's talking mainly about this sort of thing comes mainly from cathode tube CRTs. And who owns a CRT these days?
Well, I don't really.
I've got one down there, but not very many people.
With monitors too, like the research that she's talking about happened, well, not a while back, but it wasn't very.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's been changes since then. Now the one.
Yeah, she's talking about CRTs.
The one thing that stood out to me on that, though, I mean, is the resonance that in that article. It talks about the inventor Hendrikus G. Luce suggests that pulsing the images on these displays at specific frequencies can trigger physical responses through sensory resonance. You see what I mean? So that means, like, if you create a video or something and you use certain frequencies, it can actually trigger a physical response through your sensory.
Oh, this is like sensitive epilepsy.
Exactly.
Concept. Yeah. Fun enough. When was it? It was 2019, 2020. There was a suggestion by, I think, Bill Ottman to actually put overly stimulated videos plays an NSFW, a not suitable for work thing, on overly stimulated videos. Because of light sensitive epilepsy, and I pointed out to him, I found figures to say that there's only something like 80% of people in the US suffer from epilepsy, and only something like out of that, something like only like 10-15% suffers from light sensitive epilepsy.
Yeah. And
So I just said it's not worth it.
the one,
It's such a small percentage.
yeah. Now there's also, she goes on in what she wrote too, to say that this stuff is actually able to, these signals are able to interact with the viewer's skin as well, and it's supposed to be able to do it subliminally, because without the person being able to consciously perceive it. You know what I mean? Because it's too faint. So I do find that pretty interesting.
But I think she's really talking about what would be considered now as old technology.
Well, I mean, if it's old technology, then your theories are shot. Then you realize that, right? Like, because the system that she's talking about, it aims to manipulate human bodies by using like everyday hardware. So
but we're talking about CRTs, and and everybody uses flat screen monitor screens. That is a completely different sort of technology.
Well, she's also talking about electromagnetic stimulations too.
Okay.
So, I mean, are you willing to go that far? Are you willing to say, okay, Nancy, you are right 100%, because this is old technology? After
I'm
hearing,
not absolutely sure. I would have the sort of sensitive people.
Now the patent that she's talking about too, just to point it out, the patent was public since 2003.
Yeah, so it's been around
long
before. I thought all patents were meant to be publicly available from the start.
I don't really know about that. I mean,
I'd have to check that legal up as far as US Patent Office is concerned.
So that's actually a good question, because I really don't know. I've never even thought about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought it was by default public information.
I've kept no secret from you guys.
Public accessible information, yeah.
When it comes to like the nervous system, you know what I mean? I've been interested in the nervous system for a little while now, to be honest with you. I keep saying I'm not gonna do any more research into it, but I keep getting sucked back into it, you know? Like the human brain, I think a lot of people underestimate what's really going on there. And I don't care if you're talking conspiracy or any kind of, paranormal, ufology kind of stuff, or if you're just talking scientific. I mean, there's something weird going on there when it comes to the human brain. And everybody and it doesn't matter who you talk to, somebody's always got a problem with it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how is the human brain so much of a controversy?
Because we don't know the full workings of the human brain at the moment.
Well, I mean, if you stop to think about it, it's like Nancy, she even said it. It's like it controls your immune system, your hormones, your digestion, sleep. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
it is true. It's very, very complex machinery, and we just don't know all of it. And I really think that science should be investing more research into the gray matter within the thalamus. You know,
Mm.
you hear people always talking about the cerebellum this and the cerebellum that, but freaking dude, if you want to do real research in that field, they need to be focusing on the thalamus because that is the most interesting part of the brain. It really is.
Don't know if there isn't enough research. I don't know. I have not read any papers on the subject.
The fascinating part about it to me is that it's it, it's electric too. You know what I mean? Everything is electric.
Mm.
It's not just chemical; it's electrical. So, and then like the connections to the way that the brain interacts it's amazing how much they've tried to simulate that when it comes to computer science. Like it is just complete. And I know me and you were talking about like biological intelligence. You know, and that right there, that right there blows me out of the water because that goes straight into eugenics. It literally does. It's just straight eugenics.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, because see, when I first started getting into the whole concept between what's the difference between eugenics and genetics, it was explained to me that the main difference between eugenics and genetics is this: when it comes to like genetically modifying or creating something new, genetics believes that, like, say, if you genetically recreate a human being, you'll create a being with a fresh, blank, freaking mind. Okay? Now, eugenics doesn't want to believe that. They want to create a genetically freaking brand new human body or anybody with the memories retained from the former original model. You know what I mean?
Okay, I'm not so sure if I agree. I take it much back down to a much more fundamental point. Eugenics is a man-made concept, and genetics is a natural.
Well, let's be serious. You know what I was talking about. You know, come on. Dude.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but yeah, I'm going to take a much more fundamental stance on this one.
Well, eugenics, by all accounts, eugenics is actually having a comeback now. Like a lot of the things people say that are unfounded just mysteriously seem to be popping up in freaking technology now. There's a lot of technology using it, like facial recognition. I talked to you about that. That's 100% freaking eugenics. As a matter of fact, the guy who coined
No. There's no manipulation of man-made manipulation of genetics. There, it's just pattern recognition.
That's dude. Eugenics, okay, is what I was talking about. Like when it comes to facial recognition.
Yeah, facial recognition is just pattern recognition.
Right.
How close the eyes are, where the nose is, where the mouth is, in proportion to.
You know
facial structure.
You know about the guy who coined the term freaking eugenics, right? Huh?
Yeah, you have to remind it's in the back of my head saying I do, but you have to remind me.
Francis Galton.
Yeah, that makes sense, I think.
Yeah, so he was the cousin of Charles Darwin. Okay. And he's the one who formulated the concept of to describe the study of and the social control over agencies that could improve or repair the racial quality of future generations. Now, he introduced the term in his book, Inquiries into Human Faculty and Its Development. Now, when you look at his career, okay, he actually had this this theory where he could actually figure out who was a criminal just by the look on their faces, their facial gestures, or the way they carried themselves.
Yeah, I recognize this theory. Yeah.
No, I mean this is actually he actually believed this stuff. Okay.
Yeah. I have some understanding of this theory.
Now, ever since then to this day, freaking people who are into genetics and into science have been trying to squash this theory for quite some time, and they have repeatedly failed to do it because it keeps cropping up and becoming popular. No matter how many times they try to discredit this stuff, they keep coming up with it keeps coming out and becoming popular. Like, have you ever heard of people rubbing somebody's head and trying to determine what kind of a person they are because of the bumps in their head?
Yeah, what's there's a scientific term for that?
Phonology or something like that.
Phonology, yeah, it could be.
Phonology. Let me see. I'll see if I can pull it up.
Could be, yeah.
Hold up. Galton is probably... Now, it says that phonology is a scientific study of timing of recurring biological events in the life cycles of plants and animals.
Okay.
Galton's photo theory. Let me see. Yeah, I'll ask him what's Galton's. I wish I still had my notes. I had all this stuff at one time. His photo theory is formally known as composite photography, developed in the 1870s. It was his attempt to use the medium of photography as a scientific tool to visualize human types and heredity. Now, Galton created these images by layering multiple exposures of different people onto a single photograph plate. By aligning the eyes of each subject and giving them equal exposure time, the individual idiosyncrasies would blur away, leaving behind a sharp, dark, average face that Galton believed represented the central type of that person. His main goal...
Sorry, it just reminded me of I used to tell about people who see eyes are murderers.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You hit it right on the nose.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. That's what his goal was. He wanted to find visual proof of his theories. Now, he had the criminal type. Now he layered photos of convicts to see if a criminal's face existed. He eventually noted that the process actually made them look less villainous as the common humanity prevailed other individual irregularities. Now, the way I usually say it is, when he did all this, it actually made the criminals, when they blended these photos together, it made them look better. Okay, it wasn't the way people perceived what the ultimate criminal would look like. You know what I mean?
So this is like that sort of getting two celebrity photographs, mixing them up and predicting what the offspring would look like.
Or look at the artificial intelligence thing. That the what they do is they take these images, they blend them together, and they come up with this female. You know what I mean? The way that you want her to look and everything like that. You know, that's the thing, and they are actually starting to use facial recognition. They're wanting to use it with criminals so that they can look at their faces, and when they're asking them questions, they can determine if they're lying or not.
I'm not sure if I know anything about this, but this sort of reminds me of the polygraph tests, which are they still legally? Can you still use them in court cases in the US?
I don't know. I know they're using.
I know it's always been a no in Britain. It's always been considered unreliable evidence.
Now, he also goes on with medical diagnosis. He created compositives of patients with tuberculosis to try to identify a physical predisposition to the disease. So he believed that if he could put all of these images together, it would show you what a person with tuberculosis would look like.
Okay.
So...
I'm not sure. Well, I've never seen anybody with TB. Again, TB is so rare these days, even though due to the issue of migration into Britain, there has been reports about TB being on the rise again.
Yeah. Well, he actually, now the thing about the AI stuff that I was mentioning, the thing of it that really gets weird is like he also made composites of those he considered fit, such as like Royal Engineers and Westminster schoolboys, and that was in order to like visualize health and talent. Okay. And that's my, and this is all eugenics. This is actually the guy who coined eugenics. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that's where I come from when I'm talking about like facial recognition and everything. Like it's on a comeback. Eugenics is a big part of freaking like AI and computer science.
Again, I'm not sure if I can agree with that point because again, facial recognition is just pattern recognition.
That's exactly what they're doing, dude.
Yeah.
I just explained.
Eugenics.
I just explained to you pattern recognition before computers were even invented, dude.
yeah, but it's a form of
yeah.
I suppose it depends on what it's been used for.
You could use computers to enforce eugenics. Hi, gentlemen.
Yeah,
hey,
agreed. That's what I meant.
I mean, I get a kick out of you because like I just literally freaking explained to you the whole process before freaking computers were even.
But again, you can't really say facial recognition is closely tied or intertwined with eugenics.
How can you not say that?
But it could be. There's a lot of possibilities there, gentlemen. This could be a vast untapped resource for eugenicists.
Yeah.
You know,
like you're opening.
I mean, it's pretty demonstrable that if you have a high mutational load, this is going to express itself physically. You know, like with asymmetrical faces, with certain physiognomic physiognomy. I think that the physiognomy actually, I mean, it's a meme too, but it does work up to a certain point. I mean, we see people and we can get quote unquote vibes off them, sort of thing. The trouble with eugenics, as I've always said, is we're not smart enough to make it work. And also we've always eugenics all through our history as a race, if you accept the idea of eugenics as a way to make babies. We've always had rules about who's allowed to marry who. You don't marry within your family. Marry out. Sometimes a lot of tribes you have to marry outside the tribe. Just they didn't know it was to keep the gene pool clean, but it was their idea. Well, it has to be done with this ceremony. It has to be with this person. I know there are like Eastern cultures where you're supposed to marry your first cousin, which is very interesting. In Arab countries, even if the cousins are not going to get married, there's a part of it where you have to ask permission of the woman's first cousin. Say, you've got dibs on her, kind of deal. So, and now we've got all this knowledge about the human genome that want to apply to it. But again, all our history has been, we try to do this, but we don't really know what we're doing. And, I've gone on before about today's trait that you might think is not a good one to have from an evolutionary perspective. Tomorrow, it might be a very important gene to have. Because, evolution is not about improving and getting better. It's about being better adapted to whatever the situation is. So, and our bodies do that in the short term. I mean, if you just sit in your parents' basement, I know that's a meme too, but I know people like this, 40 some odd years old, and if you've never had a job, you just sit in the basement and eat tendies and play video games all day, your body is going to adapt to that. It's going to put on a lot more weight. You're going to have all kinds of weird things with your sugar. And you could say if that was the future of the human race, then people that could stand obesity and high blood sugar are better adapted to that life. So eugenics is a can of worms. It's a great idea. I don't think that we're really smart enough to do it properly. I mean, aside from the obvious, you don't want to have first cousins, or better marry. You don't want to have there are things like if you're carrying a child that has Down syndrome, or there's a chance that you're going to have Down syndrome in a child, you might decide not to procreate with that person. As a Buddhist, I can't advocate for abortion or anything like that because we consider that life begins at conception. At the same time, you might very well have the right to do that in your country, but it just said just because you have the right to do something doesn't mean doing it is right. And I would say to someone considering such a course, if it's legal in your jurisdiction, well, there's no problem there. But you have to consider that the karma that will result from taking the life of a sentient being, you cannot escape that karma one way or the other. But as far as facial recognition goes, I have to admit, Raj, I'm kind of in the corner of the smartest guy in the internet here, where I don't see a direct connection. Although I can see where it could be useful if like trying to, classify people. This one, look at the asymmetrical, face. Look at the distorted physiognomy. Look at the behavior. So I mean, we know the brain is like 80% genetically determined. So if you have an abnormal brain. Oops, my alarm went off. If you have an abnormal brain, you're going to have abnormal behavior. So,
well, I mean,
I just popped in to say hello. I'm actually doing my laundry right now. My alarm just went off. I have to put my clothes in the dryer. I'm trying to get ready. I have to go. My wife has to go to the doctor first thing tomorrow morning, and I said I'd go. So I'm going to have nice, clean clothes and everything for the doctor when I go.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you came in and everything. I'm glad you did your input. And I wanted to also point something out because I keep forgetting to do this. I'm not trying to make it pro eugenics or against it. You know what I'm saying? All I'm saying is like when you take a look at the evidence, just take a look at the evidence. You can see it. You can see it there. It's just like with Dawkins, okay? When you were talking right there, it just made me think of what is it? They call it the selfish
selfish gene, yeah.
The selfish gene. Okay, that is 100% of eugenics, and people today, scientific community even, they eat it up. They're like, oh man, this is good research. And they I don't know if they know it or not, but that's what they're doing. They're delving into genetics.
Just on the point, can we just stay away from the scientific community? I mean, these are individual scientists that may or may not agree with each other. They're not a community.
I don't know what else you'd call them.
That's a good point. That's a good point because, you get a vocal minority that says, we're speaking for the scientific community, where dozens of scientists say that's complete bullshit. And it's I'm thinking of astronomy, which is a little less of a hot topic, but I'm thinking of Sir Fred Hoyle, who was one of the opponents of the Big Bang Theory. And I mean, yeah, Big Bang's an interesting theory, and it's widely accepted in the media, but not every scientist accepts it. There are other explanations. Mm-hmm. And he was forced out of his position. He was at an Oxbridge University. I forget where he was. I think he was like plebeian professor somewhere at one point, and he was basically forced out because he wouldn't toe the party line. Or Halton Arp, who doubted the existence of black holes and had like some very interesting theories about quasars. He couldn't work in the U.S. anymore. He had to go work at the Max Planck Institute in Germany, where he says they never gave him any hassle because of his unorthodox ideas. He was just saying, hey, this is my idea. Let's look at these evidences and arguments, and let's draw another conclusion from them. I mean, that, to me, science, I love when you've got all these data, and you take them and you create an entirely new picture, still consistent with all the data, that's an alternative to the mainstream paradigm. Doesn't mean the one is wrong or one is right, but I like to see how you can use the mind. I sometimes call it the Cirque du Soleil of the mind, where you can take all this stuff like Halton Arp, and he's saying, there are no black holes, quasars are not far away, and the Hubble constant is basically balderdash. Because of his theory of intrinsic redshift. I don't want to get too far into it, but we use redshift to measure distance and speed, and this is based on the Hubble constant, the idea that there is a regular expansion of the universe that we can observe, and it's all based on the amount of Doppler shift, how much the Fraunhofer lines in the spectrum are shifted towards the red or towards the blue. Blue is approaching us, red is leaving us, right? But if some light has an intrinsic redshift because of another factor, that would throw off our measurements completely. And that's what ARP was proposing, and it caused a huge furor in the scientific community. It's funny thing is, he worked with Hubble at one point. He had a great deal of respect for him, but he just said, hey, there's some evidences here that contradict this. And it's the exceptions that prove the rule. That is to say, test the rule. People don't understand that saying. The exceptions test the rule. So he liked to look at the exceptions. He published something called the Atlas of Peculiar Galaxies. And there are some galaxies out there that are really weird. They seem to be behaving very oddly. And they're very often ignored by mainstream science, but ARP studied them very hard. And his biggest thing was, astronomers nowadays spend all their time looking at maths. They don't look through telescopes. And if you just look at some of these objects, it's obvious, for example, that two objects are connected. You can see a connection of gas. You can see evidence of things being basically in proximity, yet their redshifts are very different. So the astronomer looking at the papers just says, that object is much further away, this object is much closer. ARP is saying, if you look at the telescope, they're obviously connected. So maybe there's something wrong with how we're using the Hubble constant. Maybe it's not a constant after all. But this, of course, would destroy one of the most important tools that astronomers have had for many years in constructing these models of the universe. And, I got to go put my clothes in the dryer, gentlemen. Okay. I will stop back, though, in a moment.
All right, that's cool.
I got to go for now.
Appreciate it.
All right, bye.
Yeah. Just on the point of Otto's point.
Hold on. We do have a message for you. We do have a message. We actually do got somebody that made a comment, and it was good. It was aimed towards what we were talking about with Nancy's comment. It's down bad productions on Twitch said you heard wearing headphones can change your personality. And then he went on and said that the plastic colors are bad, but the Wi-Fi frequency is worse. So go ahead.
On headphones, they generally, presumably he's talking about wireless headphones, so it would be generally Bluetooth, would it not? Mm-hmm. No such thing as a Wi-Fi enabled. Is because
you heard wearing headphones. He just said headphones. He said
okay, yeah. I just wondering where the Wi-Fi thing coming in from there. What was I going to say? Back to Otto's point. also the scientific community can be somewhat corrupted because of political actions. I mean, look at during the COVID pandemic.
Well,
The arguments surrounding that.
science is a tool.
Trust the science. Yeah, trust the experts argument.
No, look, science is a tool, first of all. A good scientist will tell you that. That'd be the first response that comes out of his or her mouth, okay? It's a tool. When people turn around and talk about the scientific community, they're just talking about a community that uses science as a tool in order to do research. Okay? And a lot of the stuff that's involved with politics, that isn't really science. Okay? I mean, to me, I'm just saying that's my
But again, science can be manipulated by politics. I mean,
that's the cool part about
the
science.
argument about the Earth going around the sun or the sun going around the Earth.
That's the cool. See, the cool part about science is it's open-ended. You can go ahead and manipulate the shit out of it all you want, but in reality, what's going to happen is, in the end, if you use the scientific method, you're going to have to change. Okay, you can manipulate it and lie and try to say this is true and this is true all you want, but in the end, because of the humiliation that you put yourself through, science is going to force you to either freaking concede that this is wrong and this is right, or you're just gonna fail.
Or science. The science, quote unquote, will be capitulated by politics.
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's real scientists out there who are actually interested in learning. You know what I mean? I think I think that it's also a flip side to it, where there's too many people who are anti-science and they want to kind of say how horrible scientists are because they're frustrated, you know what I mean? Because they're not hearing what they want to hear. They're wanting to hear things that are just completely unscientific, and it's annoying to them. You know what I mean? They're like, why aren't freaking we seeing aliens from Alpha Centauri yet? You know what I mean? Well, that's because we don't have the technology to see aliens from Alpha Centauri yet. You know what I mean?
That is, if there are even aliens from Alpha Centauri. The blue sensor. What was it? The blue sensor. The sentient color blue from Alpha Centauri. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That was a cool book. Yeah. I didn't like the movie. I do have to say that.
No. The radio production that the BBC did back in just after the book was released is much more truer to the book, or to the books, because it's not 3 books.
Yeah, I believe so.
2 books. Yeah. I actually had the BBC radio version, the first book on cassette tape, and the second book on CD many years ago.
But it's like, I mean, and I don't get too many chances to really talk about science the way I want to, but I mean, it's kind of like with history, you know what I mean? I think I love both of them. I love history and I love science. I love the fringe stuff. I love going off and getting into the paranormal and the whole thing about ufology and stuff like that too, you know. But there's I mean, for people who actually freaking have a rational brain, they're able to differentiate things. You know what I mean? Like, why do you have to have a subject that talks about Atlantis and then say that you have to discredit freaking actual ancient history because you believe in Atlantis now? Why can't you freaking actually be interested in both subjects without freaking one of them conflicting with the other? You know what I mean?
Depending on the specific subject matter.
You know, I mean, I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the stories about Atlantis. I really am, but I'm also interested in like ancient history. What archaeologists believe when it comes to ancient history, and I'm interested in what ancient alien theorists believe too. You know what I mean? I'm cool with all of it. I like to sit and do research on all of it. I like to debunk a lot of the ancient alien stuff because I really do find it really humorous when I look at a lot of the stuff that they had on their show. You know, like they would make claims that just were just completely off the wall. You know what I mean? That was never historically ever made. Like they had this one about Pythagoras' father found this funny looking little kid out in the middle of the woods, and he was extremely intelligent, and he brought him home, and this kid was freaking so smart. He was a freaking star child, and he made it to where Pythagoras had to have him as a son, I think, an adopted son, and he guided him through his life and taught him all the secrets of the universe and shit. And I went and I checked to see if that was even if it was even a myth. And there's nothing saying that Pythagoras' father did that, or Pythagoras had a little strange looking kid as a son that was a genius. None of that, you know. I found that that's the kind of stuff I'm into. I like to pick it. There he is.
Hey guys.
There he is. Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good.
I had to explain Ancient Aliens to Mark Edworthy.
Seriously?
Yes. Well, we were talking about eugenics before you came in here.
Okay.
So we started talking about facial recognition and eugenics. And,
How they relate?
Yeah. And then we went from there to talking about science and history and things of that nature. And like for me, I was just telling him, why can't you freaking be interested in all of it? Why can't you be interested in actual ancient history as well as ancient alien theories? And why can't you be interested in real science other than freaking fringe science? You know what I mean?
Actually, just going off onto a tangent for a minute. I had an interesting conversation with Ria not that long ago about she had the idea that science and religion couldn't exist in the same sort of realm. If you're a scientist, you cannot, by definition, be religious.
Completely.
By definition.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. That's Galileo. He's a religious guy. Isaac Newton.
See, that's
a lot of scientists who are religious.
You hit that right on the nose. I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what I was trying to say. Like, why that's complete nonsense. You know, why can't you believe in God and still believe in science? Science is a tool, dude.
Yeah.
You know?
There's I think those people who make that claims are people who believe in scientism.
Right. The science is their religion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the people who treat science as the ultimate of everything, the source of truth, and it's basically their God. So.
Yeah. Well, it's. I believe that we are spiritual beings. We have spiritual instincts. And, I brought up before that classic scene in the comedy show Red Dwarf where they're discussing aliens and God, and the one character says, "Oh, I don't believe in God. I believe in aliens." And because human, that is the most powerful thing they can think of. I mean, before we had the scientific outlook, the most powerful thing we could think of was a spiritual being. So if we had something odd happen to us or a strange experience, we would attribute it to a visitation of some sort, an angel, or further back, a local spirit. But you can't think that way anymore. So if something really odd happens, well, it must have been a saucer interaction. And some of these saucer alien people, and I know a few, they're wonderful people, but you notice that they have a lot of their outlook seems religious. They're looking to a higher power, and they can no longer believe in a spiritual higher power. But we have an instinct for it. I had a friend of mine many, many years ago, a guy named Mike Gollner. Very nice. If he's listening, hello, Mike. Haven't talked to the guy in 30 years, probably. But he used to say we would argue about religion and stuff, and I used to be very, very reductionist in my arguments, because I always like to take the other view. And he would say, well, listen, if there's no God, why has every single human civilization and every single human society that we know of has had gods, has had a religion of some sort? There's no such thing as an atheistic society from scratch. Even today's arguably secular society is obviously post-Christian and very heavily influenced by it. Our ethics, our morals, and of course, these didn't originate with Christianity. As Chesterton would point out, the old pagans also had their morality, their ethics, and he found it to be a stricter and darker ethics and morality than Christianity presented. And again, pointing out that there was a reason for Europe's mass conversion. It wasn't all just Charlemagne chopping the heads off of Saxons after he baptized them. And as someone pointed out, it was Charlemagne. Whether he baptized them or not, he would have chopped their heads off. Chopping heads off had nothing to do with the baptism part. He just liked to kill Saxons, kind of deal. But yeah, I think Christianity was providing spiritual answers to people and who were looking for them. And we know in the late Empire, there were all these mystery cults, all sorts of new religions were springing up. So that was, that we have this inner drive to make a spiritual connection with something. And today it's very sad. We're trying to make that spiritual connection with the physical universe and the physical beings in it, which I think is kind of a come down personally.
Interesting. Hello, Otto.
Hello. I'm actually doing my laundry now. I'm just checking in once in a while to say hi to you guys. I'm glad you made it there.
I think in all of us, I think Mark Edworthy is the most atheistic in the whole gang, aren't you? Like, you don't believe in anything, do you, like Mark?
I always argue that I consider myself to be more of an agnostic rather than an atheist.
Agnostic, yes. Yeah, I think we tend to associate atheism with militant atheists, where they are like either they're anti-theists, more like, right? Fighting
it's almost
against.
a religion for them too. They can get very. I know a guy that was he was raised as a very strict. What do they call it? It was like a Protestant Baptist, very quote unquote primitive Christianity, very, very fundamentalist. That was the word I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned from that and became extremely atheistic. And then later on went on to develop an early case of Trump derangement syndrome. It was amazing. And a guy I knew that also knew him was saying, I had lunch with him, but he just started screaming about how we have to fight Trump and this and that and all this stuff. And this was back in 2016, And I'm like, it suddenly strikes me, this is the same kind of emotional involvement that he had with his early religion as a child. This fire and brimstone, it must be, there is no black and white, or there is only black and white. There's no areas of gray. You're either with us or you're against us, kind of deal. And it's the same mental pattern that's being repeated. And again, this is something I'm going to jump over to, like Dr. Dutton, the man that uses reductionist science to explain why religion is so important. You know, we've always had in our societies a religious outlet, you know, for the spiritual impulse that we have. And when the free thinkers and atheists took over and said, we don't need any of this God stuff anymore, we can just party, woo-hoo, no sin, this is great.
Right.
It removed so much that was there for a reason. You don't build up spiritual and religious traditions over hundreds and thousands of years, and arguably many thousands of years, right? For no reason. It's the same thing we were talking about eugenics earlier, about why you've got certain genes. They're there because they might come in handy sometime. You don't just like get rid of certain things. Oh, well, we don't need. I think, again, I'm quoting Chesterton a lot tonight. He said something about, if there's a wall up, you don't just tear the wall down. You figure out why the wall is there. And when you can tell me why the wall is there, then you can tell me why it's a good thing to tear it down. You don't just say, oh, look, it's a wall, let's just tear this down. Let's just get rid of this prop. Let's just get rid of that. You know, this is freedom, woohoo. But, you know, a lot of the times freedom comes from work. Freedom comes from dedication. You know, it's freedom from things, freedom from the enslavement of your desires, of your what we call them defilements in Buddhism, the anger, you know, the the greed, the delusion. And it's like, you know, if people are naturally good and naturally incorruptible, they wouldn't be able to be corrupted. How do all these perfectly wonderful, noble savages that we all were at one time get together and create this evil society that is supposedly ruining us all from being noble savages? It never made sense to me. But
you know, you're familiar with Chesterton, so you probably know in the Christian world, we define freedom as being able to do what we ought rather than doing whatever we want. Right?
I like that. That's good.
So,
yeah.
So,
and freedom is knowing what we ought to do too. That does free us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Rules are really liberating if they're looked at properly.
Yeah.
You know?
So, yeah. Since you're talking about Trump, you're probably the best person to ask, Otto. What do you think of the recent State of the Union address?
You know, I didn't see it yet. I haven't had a chance.
Really?
I have read some things about what went on. Yeah, actually, I was in the middle of a lot of IRL stuff, I think, at the time. I've had a very hectic life of late. But I figured it would be more of the same. You know, Trump, I used to watch his speeches before he became president again, because it's just he's so funny. I mean, the guy's like a stand-up comic, really. Now that he's in power, it's like, okay, I know all his jokes and stuff, and I know what he's going to say. It's kind of more fun watching him punch up. I mean, he's still punching up in a lot of ways. But I do know from what I saw of the State of the Union, I would say offhand, and I've heard a couple people argue this, that it basically showed up the Democrats as being, you know, very childish. I don't think they did their party any good with this relentless, quote unquote, resist thing. I mean, I have the feeling what they're doing is they're appealing to this very loud, very radical part of their party, which they see as their base. And they're locked in this echo chamber, and they don't realize that 80% of the rest of the country doesn't really agree with them. I did see an article about apparently some people are having some sort of trauma over the fact that the United States won the hockey game for the Olympics. And they were saying it's perfectly normal to feel, you know, cringe and horrified and disgusted by America winning, and all, you know, especially if you realize how bad America is. And it's like, what? I mean, who's teaching people to hate the country they live in? And it's always like, all right, well, what country are you from then? You know, you're going to burn your credit cards and passport and your license? I mean, a country's like a lifeboat. I mean, you don't start kicking holes in your own lifeboat just because somebody else's lifeboat isn't as good as yours.